I'm not a bad person. I'm not proud of what I used to do, but it wasn't meant to hurt anyone. Hacking into people's computers was just a thrill, a game. I've been good with computers since I was a kid, and as I got older, I discovered I had a knack for getting into places I wasn't supposed to. It was like solving a puzzle, figuring out how to bypass firewalls, break passwords, and dig through someone's digital life without them ever knowing. I never did anything serious, never stole money, never messed with people's personal files. I just liked the challenge. That's what I kept telling myself anyway. Until the night I hacked into my neighbor's computer. His name was Mr. Walters. Quiet guy, lived alone, mid-50s. He wasn't the most social person, but he always waved when I saw him, gave a polite nod when we passed each other in the street. He didn't seem like the type of guy who'd even know how to use a computer beyond checking his email, which is probably why I targeted him in the first place. It was easy, too easy, to break into his Wi-Fi network. Once I was in, I poked around, expecting to find nothing more than old man stuff, boring emails, maybe some weird hobbies or phishing websites, but I found something else, something I wish I hadn't. It was a Thursday night. I just finished work and was in that lazy, bored mood where you don't want to do anything productive, but sitting around feels like a waste. My computer was open, so I started scanning for local Wi-Fi networks. Mr. Walters was unprotected, no password, so I got in without a hitch. No big deal. I'd done it 100 times before. I opened up his system, remotely accessing his desktop. The guy was neat. No clutter, just a couple of folders, a browser shortcut, and some standard apps. For a moment, I considered just backing out, moving on to someone else. But then I saw the folder. It wasn't hidden, but the name was strange. Vacations. Something about it seemed off, too generic, too simple. People usually name their folders after specific trips, right? Not just vacations. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on it. The folder opened up, revealing a grid of image files. There had to be hundreds of them, all named things like IMG01, IMG002, and so on. The thumbnails were small, too small to make out much detail, but the images were dark. I clicked on one to enlarge it. It was a photo of a woman, standing in what looked like a dark basement. She was wearing normal clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, but her expression was what made my blood run cold. She looked terrified. Her eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open, like she was about to scream, or had just been screaming. Behind her was a bare concrete wall, with some kind of metal pipes running along the ceiling. I clicked on the next photo. It was another woman, but this one was tied to a chair. Her face was bruised, her arms bound with thick rope. She was sitting in the same basement, the same pipes overhead, the same bare walls behind her. My heart was racing now, and my palms were starting to sweat. This wasn't right. This wasn't just some weird photo collection. These were real people. And they were scared. I clicked through more images, each one worse than the last. Different people, men, women, even a few teenagers, all bound, all terrified, all trapped in that same dark basement. The pictures got progressively more disturbing. I found photos of people lying on the floor, blood pooling beneath them, their bodies twisted unnaturally. I had seen enough. I yanked my hands away from the keyboard, heart pounding. This wasn't just some creepy internet folder. These were people. Real people. And I recognized a few of the faces. I'd seen them on missing posters around town, shared on social media, news stories about local disappearances that had never been solved. They were all in that folder, in Mr. Walters' house. For a long moment I just sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. What the hell was I supposed to do? I had broken into his computer illegally. If I went to the cops, what if they traced it back to me? But then, as the horror of what I'd seen sank in, I realized I didn't have a choice. I had to report it. If I didn't, and something happened to someone else, I couldn't live with that. My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone. I dialed 911, my voice barely steady, as I explained what I'd found. I didn't tell them how I'd gotten the information, just that I had evidence that my neighbor, Mr. Walters, had been involved in the disappearances of several people. The police showed up within 20 minutes. I watched from my living room window as they surrounded his house, guns drawn, moving in with quiet precision. It was surreal, like something out of a TV show. There were a lot of them, more than I expected, clearly taking the situation seriously. They knocked on the door, then forced it open when he didn't answer. I couldn't hear what was happening, but I could see the flashlights moving through the windows, the cops going room to room. It wasn't long before they brought him out, handcuffed and looking dazed, like he didn't even understand why he was being arrested. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Mr. Walters had always seemed like such a harmless old man, keeping to himself, tending to his garden, nodding politely to neighbors. But now, as they led him to the squad car, all I could think about were the faces in those photos. The fear, the desperation. There was no excuse for that. The investigation that followed was intense. The police found more than I ever imagined. The basement I'd seen in the photos was real, beneath his house, hidden behind a locked door. It was a nightmare. There were bloodstains on the floor, makeshift restraints bolted to the walls, and cameras mounted in the corners, filming everything that happened down there. They found knives, ropes, plastic sheeting. It was like something out of a horror movie. But what shocked me most was the number of victims. They found evidence of at least 15 people who had been brought there, tortured, and eventually murdered. Most of them were local, people who had gone missing over the past few years. Walters had been careful, targeting people who wouldn't be missed immediately. Runaways, drifters, the kind of people who slipped through the cracks. The images I had stumbled upon were just the beginning. Walters had meticulously documented everything. He had hard drives full of videos, folders upon folders of photos, each one a sickening record of what he had done. I followed the case in the news. It was all anyone talked about for weeks. People couldn't believe it. The quiet man next door had been a monster hiding in plain sight. The media dubbed him the suburban killer, and the details of his crimes made national headlines. The police held a press conference, confirming that they had enough evidence to charge him with multiple counts of murder. He was going away for life, no question about it. But no one ever asked how they found him. No one ever knew about me. For a while, I felt relief. Walters had been caught. The victims' families finally had answers. I'd done the right thing, even if I had broken the law to do it. But as the days went on, I started to feel uneasy. It was little things at first. I'd come home and find the curtains in my living room open when I was sure I'd closed them. Or I'd hear strange noises at night, scratching like something brushing against the walls. I tried to convince myself it was just my nerves, that the stress of what I'd been through was getting to me. Then I started receiving emails. They were from an anonymous account, nothing in the subject line. No text in the body, just attachments. Images. At first, I didn't want to open them. I didn't need to see more horror. But curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on the first one, and my stomach dropped. It was a picture of me, taken from outside my house. I was sitting at my desk, staring at my computer, completely unaware. The next image was of me sleeping. The angle was from inside my bedroom, right by my bed. Someone had been in my house while I was asleep, close enough to touch me, and I hadn't even known. More images came, one after another. Photos of me going about my day, walking around the neighborhood, sitting in my living room, even brushing my teeth in the bathroom. Someone had been watching me. Someone had been inside my house. I changed the locks, installed cameras, called the police, but they couldn't do much. No signs of forced entry, no leads. I felt trapped, paranoid. I barely slept. Every creak, every gust of wind sent my heart racing. Then one night, I found a note slipped under my door. Just 5 words, scrawled in a messy, shaky hand. He wasn't working alone.